video.
Alrighty, I think that is all working and we are live, and welcome to the Dev Talk Show here on, what day is it? On June 15th, 2022, and here with my co-host, Andy Schwam. How's it going, Andy? Hanging in there?
Good. I didn't know we were starting. Oh, there it is. I must have a really long delay on the video too. But yeah, hey, I'm here, and I am looking forward to learning about Git as always with Chris Gomez. You know, when you bring the Git, I like to show up. It's always something always interesting to be had and to be learned from that. So I look forward to that. But how are you doing this week in general?
Pretty good. I mean, it's school just ended, so this was the first couple of days with everyone home here, and it's good. You know, the weather was a little warm today, but it looks like those of us in this part of the world are going to have a pretty good weekend. I think I was seeing 70s or something, which is music to my ears.
Oh.
So.
Yeah. I was at the Phillies game today.
Yeah.
And it was hot.
It
was hot. We were in the shade, luckily.
Okay.
But it was hot. And I didn't know it was gonna be, quite that warm. And so hearing what you're saying about like the 7 like that, it's sounding really good to me right now. Because I think the heat kind of got to me today. I was not feeling great afterwards.
I understand. And it can be deceptive a day like today, where I'm not sure if it got into maybe the mid 80s. But it can be deceptive that it gets to you and it doesn't catch you for a couple of hours. And so, I actually have no idea. How did that game go?
So I'm prepared to answer that. Let me just tell you this. I'm prepared to answer that. And the reason I'm prepared to answer that is because I Googled it. Okay, right before we came on, I said, I should find out how the game ended, because I will admit I left I think I left in like the middle of the 8th, right? Now,
right.
They were losing. It was like 1-0, I think, when I was leaving. As I was on my way to the parking lot, I heard the place erupt in cheers.
Oh, that's, good sign for the home team, right?
That's interesting. And then I didn't check until I got home, but it looks like the score was 3-1.
All right.
Phillies over the Marlins. And so the ironic part, like, again, if I hadn't looked it up, I would have been like, I don't know, I think they lost. But no, they won.
No, I hear you.
This was a work event.
Okay.
Which is great. I love that my company does that kind of stuff. Once a year, we go to a Phillies game. And I'll admit, I'm not a big baseball fan. And like many people there, it's more of a social event than it is a baseball event, I think, for most people. I love going and getting Bull's Barbecue. If you're, anyone who's in the Philly area, Bull's Barbecue at the stadium, that's a favorite of mine. And catching up with people at work that I haven't seen in a while. Some of them, things like that. So it was a nice time, but it was hot. Woo. Awesome. You're more of a baseball fan than I am, actually, aren't you? You're into baseball, aren't you?
I mean, we like baseball, and so I think a lot of people know that I'm originally from Anaheim, and so about 2 weeks ago, maybe, we went to the Angels game. It just happened to be at Citizens Bank Park, and there was a lot of cool stuff about that. Like, the Angels were in town for the first time in 5 years. We got to go see the hometown team. And it was actually also my daughter's birthday, so kind of a nice birthday present for her. And the Angels were, at that point, in the middle of their 13 or 14 game losing streak. I think they were about 8 in. And first pitch of the game, Kyle Schwarber comes up, who the Phillies acquired over the offseason. I'm sure they expected big things. I think he was batting like 182 at the time. And I thought to myself, boy, it's probably not what they wanted from this acquisition. First pitch over the left field fence, and I said, of course it would be that way. Of course, when we come to the game, it's going to be one of those games, isn't it? And I think he had 2 home runs, if I recall correctly. Harper had 2 home runs. It was 10-0. The Angels got absolutely destroyed. But first time I've been at the ballpark in several years, and getting to see your hometown team that you grew up rooting for, and I still root for him. That was cool.
Yeah,
I would have liked a better game.
As I said, I set this up a little bit, saying I think you know more about baseball than I do. So first of all, you said some guy's name, and I thought you were gonna tell me he plays for the A's, for your team, or for the
No, he was leading off for the Phillies.
I don't even know who he is. Like, that's how little. And then you talk about what his batting average is. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I don't. I get in trouble saying this on the stream here. I don't really like baseball, honestly, but I do like a day out at the ballpark.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Good time. I'm pulling for the Phillies. But I don't lose any sleep over it. That's for sure.
Like you said, half the fun is being out there. In this case, with coworkers and friends from work. That's the fun. So cool. That sounds great. I do want to take a quick look at something. Let's see. This is ready to go. Every once in a while, I like highlighting maybe a video I watched or something. And let's take a quick peek at this, and then we'll get into our topic. We won't spend too much time because there's no whole lot. This is someone that I just discovered recently on YouTube, and this video is about the repository pattern. It's actually part 3 in a series on clean architecture in .NET 6. But what was interesting about this one is the author says, let me see if I can find, I didn't get to the best picture here, but
a few perspectives.
This author says, hey, you can watch this one standalone if you're interested in the repository pattern. And what caught my attention about it was, if I remember correctly, the cover graphic said the repository pattern, sometimes controversial, which I think that is true. I think sometimes I'm sure we could surf the web and find people calling it an anti-pattern or whatever. And I don't care about any of that. I just thought, hey, interesting that it was broken down over about 20 minutes here, discussing how there's an interface and then there's an in-memory implementation and an EF core implementation. And the author pointed out that we don't care how it works. All we care is we have some methods that will go and either get or update or delete this data. Pretty cool. The other reason I wanted to bring the gentleman up is this is the 3rd video on the channel. I double-checked, triple-checked the 3rd video.
More, huh?
And again, I don't know if there were other videos before. I'm looking at playlists here, and I'm just seeing these
everyone.
basics. I'm not trying to interrupt here. Just these 3, and I wanted to call this out because it's a series on clean architecture for REST APIs. Definitely worth watching, and already 3,000 subscribers. It's pretty cool. So congratulations. This is great. And I'm really, really happy to see this for Amishal here. I'm pretty sure I said Amishai. I probably said the name wrong. I even tried to listen to it before. But he's doing great. And, we'll put this. In fact, I suppose I should probably put this in the Twitch chat. And then.
Wow, pretty nice that 9 days ago. And this person has quite a few followers already. That is a strong start.
Awesome. That's awesome. So it caught my attention, not just because this showed up in Twitter feed, which it did. I said, I don't know for sure if this is let me see. I'm going to get this into the Twitch chat right now. I don't know for sure if maybe this is maybe a restart to the channel. Maybe a bunch of old videos got deleted. I don't know. I don't really care, actually. I just said, hey, not bad. 3 videos here. Check them out.
Cool.
It's pretty cool.
So, no, that is cool. Also, before we start, right when we were coming on the stream, and somehow I don't know if I missed the countdown timer or something like that, but I was asking you a question about something that you had on your screen, which was this thing tomorrow night.
Yes.
And so I don't know if that was live on the stream, when I was asking you about that or not.
No, but let me while you're doing that, I'm going to see if I can bring it up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So tomorrow night, Microsoft is hosting an event, which I guess is like a build recap.
A little bit.
Build highlights.
I think it's a little bit of a call to action for Windows dev, right? I guess I shouldn't speak for it, but yeah, here it's coming up now.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, so what they're doing, I guess there's a little bit of a presentation, and then they're showing Top Gun, Maverick. Now, spoiler alert. Well, I'm not going to spoil anything. I've seen the movie already.
Okay.
And it's definitely worth, from the movie alone, it's a fun movie. I don't think it's going to win any Academy Awards. And if you're looking for something that does not remind you of Top Gun, the original, this is not it. I mean, this is definitely playing upon Top Gun.
Okay.
This is almost like a redo more than a sequel. It's a sequel. I mean, it's clearly a sequel, but oh my God.
It felt like stepping back in time a little bit then?
Yeah, so much of it is like some of the jokes, the songs, like definitely like calling back to the first movie, but in a good way, not in a way that like felt phoned in. It's like they kind of were doing it on purpose, and it's like reminiscent. Like it's just fun. It's just good fun. Action scenes were great on the big screen. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing it again tomorrow. I don't know. So I don't know. There's an agenda. So this is what we're talking about this a bit. So this is open to the public,
yes,
but you do have to register.
Right.
And I don't know if there's still space available, but I assume
I think there is.
If it's letting you, there is. Okay. Yeah.
I think. Listen, I didn't try registering again, but I think there is. And so it's here in the Philadelphia area. I believe there's actually other ones around the country, maybe even the same night.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And well, hey, it's a great place to go meet Andy and see Chris? Top Gun. And I signed up for it, but I had to. I actually canceled my registration so someone else can take the spot if it's filling up, because I actually am going to be busy tomorrow night. I did want to go, but I'm not going to be able to make it.
I thought you said you were going. Okay, yeah.
I was planning to.
Scroll down a bit. Yeah, this is. If you could scroll down, there's a little bit of an agenda. I don't know. Oh, that was the agenda. Okay, I thought there was more. It should be fun. I'm kind of looking forward. If you're in the Philly area, I'm looking forward to seeing some of our friends from, the Philly.net user group days and code camps and all that kind of stuff, and getting out and seeing some people. But you're correct. This is happening in quite a few places, at least in the U.S. I don't know about internationally. There was a calendar that I had in my email that got sent out. So anyway, good double feature if you ask me. A little catch up on what's going on from some of the build news, and a good movie, right? So
yeah, cool. All right, so we did get a chat from DC Wang saying that they weren't hearing sound, but Hector said it's okay. I am seeing the meters move. They look good to me, so I hope everything is fine for everyone, and we can.
Maybe DC Wang had the mute button hit. Sometimes on these channels, you don't notice that you have it muted.
That does happen where I come into a stream and I'm not sure what trips it or whatever, and it's muted, and I have to go. It's the mute in the Twitch viewer, in the video player itself, that is muted.
Absolutely.
So I guess I should have typed that out.
I will say this. Maybe at the time, I think you were showing that video. I don't know if you were playing it, but there was
that could have been the question, right?
And that might be what DC.
That's right.
Saying, but anyway, DC, thanks for being here. How are you? Good to see you. Maybe DC will be at the event tomorrow. Right. But yeah. So what do? You want to get into this topic tonight?
Yeah. So last time we talked about Git, I believe that we framed it using Git at work, if I remember correctly. And the purpose of framing it that way was to acknowledge that at work, there is probably some repository. Maybe it's on GitHub. Maybe it's on Bitbucket. Maybe you're using GitLab. Maybe your company, this is a popular option. Many companies host GitLab on either their own servers or somewhere, and they'll use that. Maybe you're using Azure repos as part of Azure DevOps. But no matter what you're doing, at work, we very commonly have some repository that you and your team have the rights to not only clone, but to push to. So you will clone the repository and have it locally. And then you might even make a branch locally, and you might even have a pattern. We talked about this a little bit last time, is that maybe all of your branches should be named user/Andy/ and then maybe sometimes some places want to see the number of the item in Jira or in Azure Boards or whatever. But no matter what, all of your coworkers' branches are there side by side. It's like you're all working in the same place. You push up to the same place. You very well may restrict pushing to main. I see that a lot, where no one can push to main. The only way we get into main is by pull request. That's common. But in the end, you all have rights to the repository. And so what happens is you clone, you use commands. I know a lot of people use GUIs. In these talks, we have tried to stick to actually using the commands. Although I think, as you well know, I tend to use a GUI Git Kraken for its visual display of the Git repository, not because we're going to use commands from it. We're going to come back to command line.
You like to use it. You like to show the tree, I guess you would call it, right?
Right.
And the way things branch, the visual of it. But the funny thing is, you'll use that.
Yep.
But then you'll go to command line and execute. You won't hit the buttons in there, which is kind of funny. And it's a good example of how different people use Git differently. You know, I tend to use the UIs more, right? I'll use whatever the tooling is built in, even if it's just VS Code or Visual Studio. You know, but hey, we get to the same place. The difference is that you tend to understand what's really happening more than I do.
Like for me, the purpose of this is to be able to have a visual way to teach and explain like what has happened. What have you done after this command? And then, but let's go back out and use the commands at the command line. It doesn't mean that you can't get similar views at the command line. You can. Just sometimes in this forum, it's like, well, I don't want to do git log all the time. So that's what I'll do. Now, what we're going to talk about here is in the open source world, this changes a little bit. It's subtle. It's minor. I'm not going to sit here and try and tell you it's so different. But there's a minor difference that I hope to kind of demonstrate. And if you want to kind of, a spoiler alert, I suppose, this is really going to be a talk about remotes, which is a concept that many people don't even know exists in Git. They don't even know, right? Heck, I didn't know. And that's okay. It's okay. So let me get the screen back up here. And this is just the Windows terminal command prompt. That's all it is. And let's get
a beautiful Windows terminal command prompt, by the way.
I do like customizing my command prompt. We might use PowerShell later. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. And I usually customize them. Oh, this probably isn't going to work too well. So we'll stick with command prompt. Remember we had that whole show with Oh My Posh? I haven't fixed it up. I haven't fixed it up since.
When you say, wait. I like the way you go. Remember when we had that show? Like it was like 4 years ago. Like when was that? A couple weeks ago?
I don't know, about a month ago maybe.
Remember that?
Yeah, and so let's let's kind of set the stage here. And I think the easiest way to do that is, sorry, I think I can right? This should work out okay. Everything should be fine. I want to get to GitHub here. And the reason why is I want to bring up, sorry that I'm jumping around. This should be clear. I want to bring up some GitHub repository. This happens to be a simple GitHub repository called Git Hockey Site. It's hosted by some organization called the Dev Talk Show. It's just got a main branch on it. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you this is complicated, but let's go through what normally would happen. So the first thing is that this organization, the Dev Talk Show, let's say it was the ASP.NET Core team or the Ruby team or the Python team. They're not going to go around vetting everybody who might contribute to the repository. That's the whole reason that pull requests exist, is so anonymously someone can submit their idea, their proposal for a change, and let the maintainers evaluate it without having to worry about security and permissions and who did I let access to what. That's not scalable over the world. At work, those permissions have been granted to your team to access this repository. That's very common. So at first, go ahead.
I think what you're saying here, because you said anonymously, right? It's not really anonymously, right?
Sure.
Because you know who it is. I think what you're saying is, and here's the analogy I would sort of use on that.
Okay.
If I want to let you, if I need someone to make changes to my code at work, right? I'm going to interview you, Chris. You're going to submit a resume. I'm going to interview you, and I'm going to go like, yeah, I like this guy's skills. This guy knows what he's talking about.
Right.
Right. I trust him. I'm going to let him change my code base. Right. I think what you're saying is here, like they didn't interview Chris, right? But Chris might want to make a change to this site. It's out there. He can make a pull request. He hasn't been interviewed. I'm not going to let him. And right, that's sort of the way you're going at it. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's no reason that I can't clone this repository, the Dev Talk Show Git Hockey Site. I can come here. There's lots of ways to do it, right? I could use my favorite GUI to do it. But I could go so far as to say Git Clone, and I can drop in that URL, and Git is going to do its thing. It's going to go out and it's going to get this. And then I'm going to work, and then I'm going to try to push a branch, and it's going to say, no, I'm sorry. You're not allowed to do that. So the question is, well then, and if you've never done this before, if you've never tried to contribute to open source before, I am going to take this a little slow, because I do recognize that sometimes the things that we all think like are old hat, everybody knows. Well, hey, maybe the whole reason you came across this video or watching this show might be because you searched and found like this and said, oh, I want to know how to get started with Git in open source. So on GitHub, and we could open up Bitbucket, we could open up all kinds of different sites, and we would find the same thing. I have an account on GitHub. My username is SpaceShot. A lot of people know that I try to grab that where I can, because Chris Gomez is impossible to get. So that means I have my own repositories. And I'm going to go to another tab and just show you. I've got my own repositories here that I have access to these. I can check them. I can clone them. I can make changes. I can push those changes up. But I don't have that permission here. So what I'm going to do, and this is common on GitHub, is I'm going to fork, just like a fork in the road. I'm going to create a fork in the road, so to speak. That's why they call it that. Of this repository. I'm going to make a copy. And I don't want to use the word clone because I don't want to get that confused with what cloning means in Git. I want to make a copy, an exact copy of the repository as it exists right now. And that is called a fork. This is not a Git term. I cannot go to Git and say Git fork. I can't do that. Now, is it something people are doing more from the command line? Sure, because there is a GitHub CLI, and I think to be fair, I think some of our other vendors out there have CLIs. You can say like GH fork, and people love those CLIs, and those are great. Don't, if you like them, you like them. But I'm going to kind of do this the old-fashioned way, where, is it not going to let me fork it because I already have one? I might have to go. Oh no, it's forget it. It's good.
Chris,
so let's go ahead and restate it. Or
let me
whatever.
ask a question here.
Yep.
Yeah, let me ask a question here and back up a bit. So, I don't want to definitely say something because I'm not really positive about this, right? But you were saying that a lot of you have to create a fork, which is different now. So I just want to make sure that we're getting this right. So a lot of people would say, well, of course I can't check into the dev talk show, right? They're not going to allow commits on the main branch, right? I'm just going to clone it and branch it, right?
Right.
But that's not the same as forking it, right?
No.
And I assume the reason for that is because not only can't I commit to the main branch, but I don't even have permission to make branches in general, right?
Correct.
Because I'm not a user. I can't create a branch, right? Like they're developers at the organization of the Dev Talk Show, they would create branches. But in this world, Chris, you're a different person. You don't have the authority not only to make changes to a branch, but to even make a branch.
Right. And so that's exactly it. Right? Is that I have no ability to push commits, to push a branch, to offer any kind of change to this repository that's owned by the Dev Talk Show.
Right.
To look at it another way, if we go to GitHub, I believe it's, well, you can see I search for a lot of stuff that has to do with .NET ASP.NET Core. I don't actually want to fork it. I just want to go to here. If I do this, okay, and let's go to the command line. I've already cloned this repository. Okay, so I've already cloned ASP.NET Core. We're going to. I'm gonna go over how to do this later. But let me double check that hold on. Where did I clone this from?
So you say cloned it, not forked it.
No,
right?
I did. That was a mistake. I did fork it. So let's
Okay.
If we don't, let me make another folder. Let's call it test. And let's say all I did nothing more. I'm new to working in open source, and I say, hey, I've got an idea to contribute to ASP.NET Core. Look at all these wonderful issues I could work on. I actually think I will work on this issue. Mm-hmm. And so I go and I say, let me get what I need in order to come here and clone it. And hopefully this doesn't
that's what I would do, honestly. Right. This is exactly what I would do.
Okay. And hopefully this doesn't take too long.
Like I'm saying, if I didn't know better, this is what I would do.
Right. And so I hope it's pretty quick. This is a big repository. But
yeah, you picked a big one, but
I know. But the reason I picked it is because I wanted something that I know for sure I'm going to be able to. So I come here and I say, okay, cool. Here we are. Awesome. And this is a little bit of a spoiler for later. I've definitely cloned the .NET repository that I don't have any rights to. But locally on my machine, I am now sitting in main. And, there's a bunch of files in here. In fact, heck, I don't even need to. Why don't we just make a new file? I don't need to.
So you can. This is on your computer. So we talk about not having rights to anything.
Yes.
But clearly, you can change these files on your computer, right? And that's what you're doing now. You can, of course, change that.
I can work with it.
And some people might do that. Some people might make changes to things and build them locally and just kind of deal with their own little version of that application, right?
Right. I can clone the repository. I can build it and work with it. Maybe I can learn a lot about ASP.NET Core this way. I might even make little changes to either test things out or not test things out or see how I feel about how it works. That's all fine. That's all fine and good. But what I've done now is I've created a new file, and Git, by doing a Git status, Git is telling me you have an untracked file, new file.txt. You know, I don't know anything about it. So I say, well, let's prepare to commit this. Let's add new file.txt. And I know a lot of folks out there, you might just say git add dot, or maybe you use your GUI. It's fine. It doesn't matter to me. So I add that file to the index, the staging area of Git. And if I say Git Status now, it's going to be a different color. It's going to be green. And what it's telling me, because now what it says here, very important, it says changes to be committed instead of untracked files. And it says, I've got a file that you changed. You told me to hang on to the state of that file. And when you commit, I will create a commit with that change. I can do that too. I can say git commit, and I'll skip getting a message. I'm going to say added. I'm going to add the message right here at the command line using the -m parameter, putting in quotes what I want the commit to say. And I've done it. I have created a new commit on top of main with this new file, but it's just here locally on the repository here on my computer. Just like you said, I can look at the log, and it's the first one in the log. There, look at how proud I am. Author Chris Gomez. Look at how great it is to be part of.
Chris, you've contributed
on top of
contributed to .NET,
yeah,
ASP.NET.
Right, and look at Damian Edwards contributed recently. I mean, to sit among the legends.
Right now.
Yeah,
yeah, you're equal to him right now, right here.
Yeah, but now now I need to send this up to those folks. They need to see this new file. So if I say Git Push, Git is going to say, this is it. This was the whole story. Permission denied.
I'm glad you did it this way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah.
So I wasn't planning to do this, but I figured, let's do this. Let's show that I can't contribute to ASP.NET Core. So that brings us back to where we were at the beginning. The Dev Talk Show is some organization with an awesome website about hockey, and I love hockey, so I can't wait to contribute to this. So if I go ahead and I were to clone this and do everything we just did, it would be like permission denied to Space Shot. Sorry. So what do I do? Well, what I do is I click the fork button. And yes, your GUI, whether it's GitHub Desktop, maybe it's Git Kraken, maybe it's inside Visual Studio, maybe it's inside, I don't know, Writer, it doesn't matter, might support doing this step for you. But what I want to make clear is this is not a feature of Git. The Git program knows nothing about fork. Nothing. It's like fork is not a Git command. So I don't say that to confuse. I say that to say, let's talk about what's happening. When I click the fork button, which I'm going to go ahead and do, what GitHub does is GitHub says, so wait a second, let me see if I have this right. Do you want me to make a repository? And see, I've already forked it, but let's pretend that I hadn't.
So yeah, that's okay.
And you want me to make a repository that you own, that you're the owner of, with the same name usually, and I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to copy the commits, which means all the files, all the branches, everything. I'm just going to copy it over. And I say, yeah, that's what I want you to do. Now
all
that
the branches,
yeah,
everything, the history, all comes with it, which is really cool the way that works. Right? You're not just getting like the latest copy,
right?
You know,
and it is really all cool. Yours. So,
right.
You know, I'm going to go ahead and even though, so if you already have a repository of the same name, GitHub says, whoa, I can't give it the same name because these repositories are still on GitHub. They're not here yet. They're still on GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead, just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and create this is actually a second fork. And you get a cool little animation. Oh, no, it was so quick that it didn't even bother.
Wow.
Didn't even bother.
This is a really big repo.
Yeah. It's really big.
It's a really big repo.
We're going to head over to my other fork in a second. But you get a little bit of information here. It says, okay, in the Space Shot account, you now have a repository that you called this. You can call it whatever you want. And it reminds you, I forked this from Git Hockey Site. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
I can now clone this, bring it local, and because it's in my repository, because it is a repository in my account, I'm free to do whatever I want. I can commit on main. I can make branches. I can commit on those branches. I can do anything. So that's step one in the open source world. I'm going to fork this, which is creating a copy of the repository from the original maintainer's account to my account that I now am the full and complete owner over, and I can work in without bothering or asking permission of the original maintainers.
Hey, so if you go back to the Dev Talk Show site, so it's interesting because see on the right it says fork and it's got a number 1. It showed that even on the new one, even on your Chris Gomez one. I thought that was kind of interesting, which is kind of odd because that one doesn't really have a fork, right? But maybe it's maybe they're both considered forks of each other.
Well, so I think if we go look at ASP.NET Core, I think what they're trying to tell you is there are 7.9K forks. And then I believe, do I have this forked? I often do. I think what this is really telling me is there's 7,938 forks of the original.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Right? But so they know that you made a fork. I mean, I don't know if they get alerts and they care, but they're notified like, oh, look, someone's doing work on our repo or someone's forking this, right? Is I think they could tell that, which is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, I believe that I can go into settings and I can do what's called unlinking from the fork, which is not that's not something that's too important to get into. And I don't say that like, don't worry about it. It's not something you need to worry about. Maybe an interesting topic in the future if somebody says like, what does that mean? But
let's not worry about that.
Yeah, I don't want to worry about it too much. The important thing is that there is a fork now of that original. Oh, actually, I need to. So what I really needed to do is I think, I didn't fork. See how it's not saying that it's forked. So let's get rid of this. So.
No, that other one was called Git Hockey Site Junk or something like that. The one you just did.
Yeah, I'm going to delete this particular repository, which is my copy of the Git Hockey Site, and I think it might be a little old. So let me delete this, and of course. It's been just long enough since I've put in my password, I suppose. So 1 second here, and let's try to get through this. So what am I doing? I want everyone to see that the fork I'm going to work on says that it was forked. And the way I did this, I think if you remember in the last episode, I used this same repository. So I think what's happened is it's probably not, that I probably unlinked it or something. So let's do this again. I will be able to fork now. Here's that original. Let's pretend we don't know who the Dev Talk Show is. We don't know who owns it, who runs it, but I want to contribute because I like hockey. So I click and I'm logged in as Space Shot. Let's make sure we all understand that. I click the fork button and it says, hey, the fork already exists. I thought I just deleted it.
Because you have that one.
Yeah, it's probably, you're right. You're probably right.
What happened to Git Hockey Site Junk?
It's probably still here. And let's go delete it too. Just because.
So you think it thinks that like, yeah, you have it.
Right. Why do you want another one?
This is the hard part about doing demoing this stuff. Is not easy, right? There's always like little things when you're this wouldn't be the kind of stuff that would come up normally, but you're trying to repeat things and show different examples, and so that's all. It's all good.
Yeah. As much as I love talking about Git, I've always said there's a struggle in demoing it because you have to reset everything,
Yeah.
So let's do this one more time. And let's go back to this hockey site. And now it says nobody's forked it.
Right.
Okay. And now let's go. Fingers crossed. I want to contribute to this repository and create a new fork. And it says, hey, do you want to call it git-hockey-site? Yes, I do. And I create the fork. And it says, okay, here you go. Space Shot, you now have your own copy. And I can look at I believe I can look at the log. You know, I feel like it used to be easier. I don't know why I find it more difficult now to look at the log.
Well, the
here,
fact that it shows you those commits, yeah.
Yeah, there's the 3 commits from the old days. There aren't any branches, so maybe, I don't know if it's the most comprehensive example. That's why I have the ASP.NET one, maybe to look at a little bit later. We'll see. We'll see. So let's go back. I like to keep my source in source. Let me double check that I don't already have a Git hockey site, because you know me, I probably do, right? Oh, no, I don't. I don't have. That's fine. That's okay. So now I want to make sure I explain what's happening. I have forked. I have made my own copy of the Git hockey site repository. It's in my account. I'm the owner. I can do anything I like. I like to clone by using this URL. You could also use the SSH version. You could also use the GitHub CLI. All of that works. Not saying you shouldn't do any of those. But I can say Git Clone, put that URI in, and Git is going to do the following by default. It's going to go look up on GitHub in the SpaceShot account for Git hockey site. It's going to find it. So it's going to make a copy of that repository from the server, from GitHub, and make a copy that's on my local machine to work with. That's simple enough. If I don't provide any other parameters, it's going to put it into a folder with the same name as the repository. So it's going to be Git hockey site. And I can say cd Git hockey site. And here I am. Here it is. If I say Git status, it's a true Git repository. If I say Git log, we're going to see those 3 commits, the same ones that we saw on the website. I have a copy of this repository now. I can begin working locally. Is that clear? Is pretty clear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And in this case, the change you make is really kind of irrelevant, right? But I assume you're going to make some kind of change to this thing.
We'll make a change. So, this is where I want to point out that this talk is really about remotes. So if I use the command git remote, which I rarely do, I usually add an option that you'll see in a second. It tells me your remote, you have a remote called origin. Now, what does that mean? When you clone a repository, Git, one of the things that makes Git confusing for people is the amount of things that it does automatically without you knowing. And when you say Git clone, which many of us do, whether we're using a GUI or not, by default, what Git will do is it's going to make a copy of the repository. That's your copy. Those are your branches. You can do whatever you want to them. But it's also going to remember, and that's not, a Git purist will argue with me using that word, but let's go with that analogy. It's going to remember that you got this from a place, from somewhere, and by default it calls that place origin. I like to use Git Remote -v because I think this is always clearer.
I think so too. I like that. Yep.
I
Showing
always
you what
do this.
is the origin, the
Right.
true definition. Origin is like a what's the word I'm looking for?
A server, a destination.
No, origin. I mean, it's just a key, like a word.
It's
not
right.
The real. There's no place called origin.
That's
it's
right.
It's like a variable name or something like that. You know,
you might call it an alias.
That's actually the word I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
That's exactly
I'm actually
the word
not
I was
going
trying
to.
think
I'm not going to claim that Git officially calls them aliases. I think Git officially calls them remotes. There's a remote called origin that happens to be at github.com in the SpaceShot account at the Git hockey site repo. And you can see when you do a verbose, if I say -- verbose, that's the same command. Git even breaks it down for you and says, so when you fetch from origin, this is where you're going to fetch from. And when you push to origin, this is where you're going to push to. So believe it or not, you can get tricky and have a single remote's fetch and push pointing different places. I will tell you, I have never done that. And it's not because I think it's terrible and awful and you should never do it. I've just never had a use. And I think there's some confusion that's not worth the effort. So you almost might want to pretend I didn't say that.
I've always seen that.
Yeah.
I've always seen those two different versions of origin, you know, the fetch and the push. And I've always thought,
why?
Man, what must you be doing?
Yeah.
that. But hey, it's cool that you can do it, right? There must be a use case somewhere.
Sometimes when Git repositories kind of get quote unquote messed up, you have to resort to some very complicated ways to fix things. And I could possibly see maybe, right? So what's so special about origin? Well, you know, it turns out that commands like git fetch, you can add the remote you want to fetch from. You can say when you push, what's the remote I want to push to? But we don't do that. We especially don't do it at work. Because at work, we only have one remote, origin. We never care about anything else. It's going to be important here. The difference between origin, which is my version of the repository, and that original version. It's not going to be important until much later, though. But I'll let you know when we get there. So, well, when I say much later, not too much later. So Git Push by default says, well, which remote should I use? Oh, it's listed right here in Git Remote Verbose. Push, I push to origin. When I fetch from origin, unless you go the extra mile and specify what remote we are pushing commits to. But we don't have to worry about that. So what I can do is I can bring this up. We can make a quick change. Oh, wow, look at that. That's awesome. That's awesome that Visual Studio opened that way.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get that fixed. So here we go. I think there's plenty of shortcut keys I could have used, but what I did was sent it over to the other monitor and then brought it back. So there is a simple index HTML, very simple. And what I'm going to do, because I think hockey is great, I'm going to add. You know what I love here? Here we go. GitHub Copilot happens to be activated. And I just want people to see what GitHub Copilot has brought up here. I didn't type this. GitHub Copilot looked at this on the client side and said, well, this might be the next thing you want to type about. I got to admit, I find that absolutely astounding.
Chris, I got to admit, I want you to accept that because I want to see what it lists after that. I'm a little curious to find out what places it's going to list.
Right.
Is it going to list our local hockey rink?
So I'm going to go ahead and hit tab to accept it and hit enter. And let's see. Oh, it's like, well, you probably want another. I think it's looking above and it's saying, hey, you kind of seem to have this flow. So let me create that flow for you. I'm certain that's what's happening. I have been absolutely astounded by the suggestions that I get. Look, how about a hockey arena?
Yeah.
How about a hockey club? How about it's like, oh, okay, that's it. I'm done.
That's great. I thought it was going to give like actual addresses or something like that, but you don't know, right? So anyway, whatever. We had a little fun with Copilot, GitHub Copilot.
Thanks, Copilot. That's the change I'm going to use. Awesome. Amazing.
Why not?
So if I save that, and all I've done is I've simply saved this file. If you're a Visual Studio Code user, you'll notice that the Git section's already telling me that there's a pending change. I could make the change here. That's fine. Not trying to say anyone shouldn't do that, but when we do these talks, I tend to stick with command line. So I'm going to say Git Status to show me, okay, your branch is up to date. But you've got this modification that you haven't staged yet. And you could commit, there's nothing to commit right now. You haven't staged anything. Well, before I stage it, I should probably, we've done shows about what to do when. So I could go ahead and commit this and fix it up later, but let's create the branch now. What I want to do here is I want to show how this looks in Git Kraken, just so that somebody new to Git can see a visual representation of what we're doing. And so here we go.
Start dot do. What, I'm curious, was that a typo? Was that a mistake?
No.
Start dot.
Start dot is an old friend of mine. When I say old, I mean start, and any folder opens the file explorer to that location. So start dot says open it here.
File explorer. I didn't see it open. It opened on a different monitor.
It did.
I think.
So I'm going to do start dot again, and I'm going to bring it over. Oops, supposed to come over. And yeah. Another trick somebody taught me a while ago that I don't use as often, I don't use this very often, is if you go to the address bar in File Explorer and you type CMD, it opens.
Yeah, that's another good trick. Yeah.
In Windows 10, and actually, maybe I don't know if it's, maybe anyone with Windows Terminal gets this now. I didn't use it very much because it would open the command prompt, but I wanted to open terminal, and it just opened terminal. So maybe I'll remember that either. I think what's happened is you can tell Windows now that terminal's your default prompt. I think that might be what's happened there. So yeah, start dot is an old friend of mine. And the reason I did it, which I never, oh wait, I did bring up, is I wanted to show this. I wanted to get back into this interface just so we could very quickly see that we have a line of commits from local. The little laptop represents local. I wish I could make that bigger, but I can't. The little laptop represents the local repository, and my little face is just their way. They went out and grabbed that off of GitHub, and they said, oh, that's origin. So origin's main is pointing here, and so is my local version of main. It's all pointing here. But I haven't made a branch yet, so let me do that. How do I make branches? There's lots of ways. A lot of people remember git checkout -b. I in this case, I'm going to say git branch places, because the name of this branch I'm just going to call places. Or let's say places to play. Let's do that. So what does git branch places to play do? It says, okay. Oh, I did not know that. Loca says you can also type WT in that bar as well. And you know what? If that's supported now, I simply didn't know. So that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to tell you, and I don't know if this is completely family friendly, but I think I can get away with this. I've typed WTF a few times in that address bar, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah. So I said git branch places to play. So what does the branch statement do? If you do nothing more than say git branch and the name of the branch you want to create, then Git says, okay, you want another sticky note right here on the same commit that you're at, but notice that it didn't change my branch. It didn't move me over there. It didn't check out the branch. It created the branch. My term sticky note, it created the sticky note and it slapped it on the same commit, but it didn't move me. That's the difference between branch and checkout. I don't mind branch. I think it's a great command. Let me head over to Git Kraken and we can see what I'm talking about. We now have 3 branches that are pointing to the same commit: the origin version of main, the local version of main, and the local version of places to play. The only problem is I haven't checked out places to play. So if I were to commit right now, it wouldn't commit on this branch. It would commit on main. Committing is a contract between you and Git that says, whatever branch I'm on, I want you to make my commit the new descendant of that branch, and then rip that sticky note off of the old commit and move it up to mine and paste it back on. That's a very complicated way of saying what Git actually does. But hopefully I can demonstrate that here. So I need to check out.
Yeah, you know, I think this right here where you are though is one of those core, like we've talked about this on the show before. This is one of those core Git concepts that is mind-boggling to people, and myself included. In other words, how could I possibly change I'm saying this, I'm not asking this. It's sort of like a thought process. Wait, I already made the change on the main. I was on main when I made the change. How is it possible that I could sort of switch branches to places to play and then have that change be associated with that? My brain just doesn't want to believe that that can happen. You know what I mean?
Right. And the reason that it works is because, and we'll use the GUI to demonstrate. Git Kraken is telling me exactly what the command line told me. It says, you have a file change. And let me click View Change. Right. And see how in Git Kraken they show that as work in progress, WIP?
Sure. Right.
They're saying here, look, you've got this unstaged file, index.html. I could click stage and drop it down here. But remember, we're going to do this from the command line. So at command line, Git Status is telling me the same thing. It's saying, you've got a change, but it's not staged. You've modified index.html. The bad news here is that in Git, the staging area is also known as the index. So there's some cross terms here. Index.html is a file. The index is one of the names that is used for the Git staging area. Let's just call it the staging area. But I haven't actually staged it yet. So since I haven't staged it, and even if I had staged it, I could still switch over to that other branch. I just haven't switched to that branch yet. I can use the command git checkout places to play, and I can switch over there. Since places to play is in the exact same spot as main in terms of the tree, Git's going to allow me to do this because it's going to say, well, nothing needs to change. You're just changing your hats. You're exchanging one hat for the other. That's all you're doing. I can use the more modern command, Git Switch, does the same thing. Git Switch, the Git checkout command, in some ways, is being split into Git Switch and Git Restore because I think it helps people understand better what's happening, even though they're both checking out. Mm-hmm. So let's use Git Switch. Git tells me I have switched to the branch places to play. And then you see that little M index.html?
Yeah.
It's just telling me, oh, by the way, there's still a modified index.html file. If I do
so if you do Git Status, right? Yep, that's what I was going to think. Yep. So it's just I think because our brains like to think of things sort of in the physical.
Yes.
Right? And physically on disk, I know that I was on main.
Yep.
And I made that change, right? But that's what's so cool about Git is the way it's not an abstraction. It's like a layer on top.
Right.
It's not the file system. Most of the old stuff we're used to for many years of source control is really based on the file system more. This is different, and that's what makes it so powerful. I mean, just the fact that what you just did is incredibly powerful.
Right. So if I take this pen to represent a branch on a tree, what our brains tell us is when I make another branch, it's an identical pen, but that branch is grown from their source like this. That's not true. Can branches diverge? Of course they can. But the act of making a branch has nothing to do with copying and creating something new. What it really is that the commits are a graph, just like we see here on the screen. The commits are a graph, in this case going from bottom to top. The oldest is the bottom, the newest is the top. And to the left, we have pointers to commits. I call them sticky notes, like Post-it notes. And when I said Git make a new branch called Places to Play, Git said, okay, let me get my pen and let me write Places to Play on this new sticky note and let me take it off and I'm going to slap it on the same commit. So there are now 3 sticky notes pointing to that commit. Places to Play locally, places main local, and origin main. That concept is so crucial and fundamental, and and I will admit, it's difficult. When that light bulb clicks, though, it's going to click. So because Places to Play is my checked out branch, checked out is a Git term, when I commit, it's going to add a commit on top of the one that says add basic all about hockey. It's going to rip this Places to Play sticky note off of that commit and move it up to our new commit. And it does all of that without telling us. It's almost magic. It's not magic because you can observe it. You can observe it happening.
Yeah.
But it seems magical.
Yeah.
So
because the commands themselves, so many of the commands are what I would call macros, right? They do more than one thing.
Right.
And that's why I like that a lot of times you'll break it down into individual commands. You'll say, I'll create a branch and then I'll switch to a branch instead of doing the all-inclusive like checkout.
I could have done checkout -B and create the branch and it would have switched right over. And I bet a lot of you watching have been taught to do that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But it keeps us from establishing the mental model of first I did this, then I did that.
Yeah. All right, so
let's commit.
So now we're going to do a push on the new branch that you created.
Oh, actually, we haven't even staged.
That modified. You haven't even staged, right?
Yeah, so first we need to add this file. And now when I say Git status, Git's going to say change to be committed, index.html. So now let's commit. And we're going to say added some places to play. And Git tells me, sure, all right. One file changed and there were 8 insertions in that file. Awesome. There's a new commit called with the commit hash of 509 DEAA. And I moved places to play to that commit. That's what this is saying. I know it's not saying it very clearly, but that's what it's saying. And we can prove that when we go back to Git Kraken. Git Kraken did just what it said. Here's a new commit with the commit hash 509 DEA. It's got the commit message, added some places to play. And look at this. The sticky note is pointing there while the old ones for main are still pointing at the prior commit.
Right.
This now allows me, now one thing I can do is I need to open a pull request, which a lot of you watching may be like, yes, I've done pull requests, but we're breaking this down hopefully to help understand Git in open source. I can't start a pull request from here. This is still trapped on my local machine. I have to get it up to GitHub. So if we go look at the GitHub site,
yeah, they still don't know about places to play, right?
That's right. That's right. We look at Space Shot, my repository that I own on GitHub, Git Hockey site. I'm going to hit refresh here, and it still says there's only one branch because I haven't pushed these commits from my local clone back up to GitHub. I haven't done that yet. So I can do that. And I do this all the time where I say Git push and I just let it go because I know what it's going to say. It's going to say, hold on a second. There's no branch called places to play up there. And it's going to tell me what to do. It says fatal, nice and scary. Fatal. The current branch, places to play, has no upstream branch, which is Git's fancy way of telling you, I don't know what branch, your local branch, what am I tracking up there on the remote at origin? What am I tracking? They tell you in fancy language to push the current branch and set the remote as the upstream, use this. And you know what most of us do? We do this. I do it all the time. I go do.
Yeah.
Control C.
Wouldn't it be cool if they
Control
said
V.
like press Y to execute this?
Yeah, right.
I'm always surprised they haven't implemented that yet, like an instant version of that.
Right. This is probably what you wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
So
and it's always right. Of course, it's what I wanted to do. Yeah.
So let's take a look at what this command is saying. It is saying push the branch places to play. But while you're doing it, set the upstream, which is a local term. Set my upstream remote for the places to play branch to origins places to play branch, which I know you're sitting there saying, like, what does that even matter? Well, it matters for future commits, for fetching from the remote. A tracking branch is your agreement with Git that when I say fetch from that remote, that one right there on GitHub under the Space Shot account. And when I say to push, I want you to go to that remote on the Space Shot account.
So on Space Shot, there is no places to play right now.
That's correct. As right
server.
this second, there isn't one.
So if you change this,
Yep.
this is going to be confusing, and I don't know why we would ever do this. But if you wanted to call it, if you said set upstream origin or just like Andy, right? Like whatever, then that would mean that locally you'd have a places to play branch.
Yep.
And on the server, that same branch would be called Andy for some
Yes.
weird reason.
Right.
You wanted to do that, right?
Sorry. Let me think. I think can be done.
You can't do it.
Okay, so I will tell you that you can.
You don't need to do it.
I will tell you that you can.
I don't even want to, like, yeah.
And I'm not trying to, this is not smoke and mirrors. You can absolutely do what you just said. But I believe that there's more that I have to put in this command to basically say, yeah. But the reality is, we're talking all the time. This is what you really want to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I want to make sure that everybody understands. I am not trying to wave you off of that. Yes, you can do it, but we probably don't want to. And that sounds like a Git dark arts show,
like,
right?
Why would you want to do that?
Right.
Really? Yeah.
So
honestly,
it's saying,
you're getting yourself into trouble. Start changing names and stuff.
So what it's telling you here is it's saying, now they're giving you a lot. GitHub, by the way, GitHub sends back these statements. This thing where it says remote, GitHub is sending this back. So GitHub said, hey, you could create a pull request for this by visiting this website. That's kind of cool. It's also, but this part here, the part from here to here is coming from my local Git executable, and the part from here to here is coming from my local Git executable. So what is it telling me? It's saying I wrote 3 objects. And what does it mean by objects? It means the files, but that's not important. I wrote them to github.com /shots Git hockey site repo. I wrote them there because apparently I have rights to do that. I created a new branch in the process, and I took local places to play, and it is now tracking origins places to play. And then it even tells you your local branch places to play is set up to track remote branch places to play from origin. Lots of fancy terms there, but the remote is SpaceShot's version of Git Hockey Site, not the Dev Talk shows. SpaceShot's version. So if we go back to GitHub, hello GitHub. Oh, GitHub's already noticed places to play had a recent push less than a minute ago. If I refresh, we're going to see it. 2 branches. Okay, cool. And there it is. Places to play.
2 branches, by the way. I'm being explicit on some of these things like you are. 2 branches. The first one is main. Main is a branch, right?
Yep.
Like you always think like, no, we only made 1 branch. No, we had main. That's a branch.
Yep.
We added places to play. That's a second branch, right?
If we go to the original, the maintainers have this. The maintainers have this repository, and I'm gonna refresh this. It still only has the main branch in it because we haven't done what GitHub's suggesting. GitHub's so helpful now. GitHub is saying,
yeah, wait, that's interesting. Hang on a second.
Well, so I'll tell you why GitHub is suggesting this. GitHub is smart enough to know that I'm the owner of places to play over in SpaceShot's land. It also knows that I'm part of the Dev Talk Show org, so it's like, don't you want to? I mean, you want this, right? You want a pull request, don't you? But you won't see this. So, in a little bit later, I'm going to show you the commands to do what's called fetching the upstream, which is making your fork current with changes on the repository you forked from.
Okay.
I have been waiting for years for GitHub to finally make it something you can do right on the website, which is great. It helps a ton of people. Before they did this, you had to do this yourself, and most people just got lost there. But we'll do it manually. So, I want the original Dev Talk Show site to take this pull request. So, I need to compare and make the pull request. So, can you
It
use
should
the
be like something like maybe I would do. Like I work
Right.
for the Dev Talk Show. I'm going to say, oh, let me see if Chris's code is good enough.
Well, not
right?
yet. I'm still
No, not
me.
yet. Right.
I'm making the pull request so that you can look at it. You're the Dev
Right.
Talk
And you're
Show.
on Space Shot right now.
Yep,
Yeah. Right.
right.
Okay.
Now, can you do this from VS Code? I think so. Can you do this from the GitHub command line? Yes. Can you do the GitHub command line interface? GH, not Git. Can you do this from Visual Studio, from lots of different tools? Yes. But old-fashioned way, I went to GitHub, old-fashioned way, and I said compare and pull request, and it's going to say, okay, the repository we want to move into is Dev Talk Show's version of Git Hockey Site to the main branch. We want it to come from your...
Hang on a second, though.
Yep.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
So I kind of would have thought, and maybe people are watching this and thinking the same thing. That's what I'm trying to just advocate for on behalf of the maybe viewer. I would have thought that you would be doing a pull request into Chris Gomez, Space Shot, I should say, right? Space Shot's main. You haven't done that yet.
I haven't.
And like,
I don't have to.
The path would be like Space Shot's branch into Space Shot's main, and from Space Shot's main into the Dev Talk Show's main, or something like that. You know, you don't need to do that.
Yeah, not only you don't need to do it. When you kind of think about how when we talk about how Git really works, it kind of makes sense. In this particular case, we have this straight line of commits. Now, granted, in a busy repository like this one, by the time you get around to making a change, this repository's moved on. We're not seeing that tonight because, unfortunately, we don't. If we had a nice big audience, I would tell the audience, can you all, like, man, stuff a bunch of commits in there, and then we might have Rich off on the side, like, accepting pull requests like crazy in order to simulate the real world, and maybe we can do that someday. But when you think about it, all I'm really asking to do is I'm asking the Dev Talk Show, I'm asking them, can you merge my commit with main? And why can't I? It'll just be a direct descendant of where main is now. It's going to be a nice fast forward merge. Piece of cake. Even if it wasn't a fast forward merge, if it looked more, actually I don't think I can show you. If there was other stuff going on, well, as long as my code doesn't have a merge conflict, maybe I'm the only person who's touching index.html in who knows when, that's just a merge. That's just make a merge commit, bring the two branches together. We do that every day in our work repositories.
So if you wanted to, if you chose, let's say, Space Shot decided, before I do this, I'm going to move into my main.
I could do that.
Break this process?
No.
You could do that.
I could do that.
You just don't need to do that.
Right.
Okay.
I could move it into a repo called Andy, into a branch called Andy, and I could do that right here on the GitHub website, and then I could start the pull request.
Okay, yeah.
The key with branches,
really
the key with branches, and this is the thing, I love calling branches sticky notes because I want people to free their minds from worrying about these things and worry more about this. Worry more about the graph.
Yeah.
Oops. What did I do there? I forgot that I didn't have Zoom It enabled. I mean, how do I not have Zoom It? Oh, I don't have it. I do have it, but as you can see,
I don't know if it comes up in my command. I usually go to like you were doing.
Yeah, I need to get this in there because it's just too valuable. In fact, I should be starting.
I should have that. I didn't know you could add that, so that's good.
Yeah. See, so I care more about the graph. I don't think this is bad, but these are just pointers to these, and I know that there's time. But anyways, so I think that was a great question. Because what you pointed out is you were expecting to have to do one thing, and I just need to get GitHub back here. Fighting me. Here we go. GitHub's already done some interesting things. It's already figured out the branches can be merged. It's saying, hey, what do I want to call it? I'm fine. This isn't that special. I'm going to create the pull request. So what happens now? For one thing, it jumped me over to the Dev Talk Show's repo And there's a pull request right here in the list of pull requests. And we can start having all the traditional things. We can have our conversation about it. We can say, no, this is terrible, this is good, this is bad. But I don't think we care about any of that. Am I going too fast if I just merge this pull request?
No, I don't think so. But again, let's say you don't know who Space Shot is.
I don't.
Because now you're putting on your Dev Talk Show hat, right?
Yep.
But you can see if you go back to the.
So just to be real quick, here is Git Hockey Site, and Git Hockey Site. It's not. You see, I don't have any pull requests in here. It's telling me that my branch is one ahead of Dev Talk Show main. But back, once I create the pull request, a bunch of stuff happens. GitHub creates this pull request that everyone can look at, comment on, make suggestions. They can look at the commit itself. Say, well, what did he do? Oh, I see. He added some places to play. Okay, interesting. I could put a comment here that said like, right? And add that comment. That's the typical GitHub stuff.
Yeah, right. There's a lot of stuff you could do. But at the end of the day, they can see that it came from some guy, Space Shot.
Right.
And you can say, you know what, I like it. I'm gonna merge the pull request, right?
Yep. So this is the way that I get to work without being a member of this organization. I get to work, I get to join in the conversation, I get to do some stuff, and they can still take my code. The pull request has been successfully merged and closed, and they'll even go far to say like, well, you don't really need, and this is the thing that scares people sometimes, you don't really need that places to play branch anymore. So delete it. And I agree with that. It's like, yeah, I don't need it. So it's just a sticky, and the commit has been merged. Main is now pointing to it. It's just a sticky note. We can take a look at what that looks like in the Git Kraken world. But first, I have to say git fetch. And what's going to be interesting about me saying git fetch is you're not going to see anything happen. And the reason why is because my origin remote is actually the Space Shot repo, not the Dev Talk shows. So this is where we'll pay off, and this will kind of be it mostly for tonight.
Yeah, so as an open source developer, at some point you sort of want to get rid of your own version of it, right? Because
maybe
like you don't want. I would think it would be confusing to keep it around. Just like we deleted the branch, you probably want to like get rid of your fork altogether and say, well, I don't need that anymore. If
you have no plans to continue working, sure. And in fact, even if you do have plans to continue working, you can dump it and fork it again, sure. But let's do something a little interesting here. If I grab the link for the Dev Talk Shows version, just as if I was going to come out here and clone, let's do something else. Let's say Git Remote Add, and traditionally this gets called Upstream. I could call it anything I wanted. I could call it the Dev Talk Show. Maybe I find that more descriptive, but I'm going to go with the traditional name just for now. And I paste in the link to the Dev Talk Shows version. Git doesn't, it very ominously says nothing. But if I say Git Remote -V, look at this. There's two remotes now.
Upstream in this case, again, it's an alias, right? But
yes,
I think what you're saying is you use the word upstream as the keyword when it was a forked situation.
Yeah, so don't ask me where the term came from. I don't know the historical reason or the answer, but for some reason it became traditional to set the remote to the original, not the same as the origin, because the origin is my fork. But to set the remote that you forked from as upstream, that became traditional. And the reason I want to stick to this terminology is GitHub is using it itself on the webpage. When we saw that fetch upstream earlier, and you said, like, what does that do? So I could actually call this whatever I want. I think it's actually, maybe it's not okay. I think I can create a TDTS with the same thing, and I don't think Git cares. I think Git's like, whatever, man. You want a TDTS alias, you want an upstream alias, you want an origin alias. As long as I know what you're talking about, I'm good.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. But I don't need this one, so let's remove. Sometimes I actually prefer calling it TDTS or ASP.NET.
Yeah.
To me, it's just more obvious, but to each their own. So now that I've done this, what does it look like in Git Kraken in the visual world? Well, in the visual world, take a look at this. I have this other remote that says Upstream, but I don't see any branches yet. That's because I haven't fetched it. The fetch command does not actually do anything to your local repository. It goes out and says, find out what happened on the remote. So if I say git fetch upstream, it's going to say, okay, fine. I'll go find out what's going on Upstream, and to get a visual of what that means, take a look at this. Upstream's main has the merged pull request commit, the merge commit. In fact, it is the only repository that has it.
Yeah.
That merge commit is only, this is where it gets confusing for people. The merge commit only exists in the Dev Talk Show's world because they were merging the commit here with their previous main here. They merged them together. Here's the merge commit. I didn't need a merge commit in SpaceShot because I haven't updated my main yet. My local doesn't know about it. No one knows about it. The upstreams, and this is where people get confused because you know why? They come back to main and they want to go back to work. And they start working again and they're like, man, this is getting really confusing. Because in between the time they started working, multiple pull requests may have been added to main, and the upstream's main is going on and on and on. But you're like, I don't know what to do. How do I get my origin main to match up to upstream's main? I don't get it. What do I do? And it turns out what you do is you check out upstream's main and push it to your main. That's what you do.
Okay.
So
I'll let that sink in for a second, right?
Yeah.
So check out upstream's main.
Yep.
Which is like a fetch of upstream, right? Yeah.
What's a checkout? But that's okay. I want you to talk it out.
Yeah. How is checkout is the same as fetching the branch and switching to it, right?
Yeah, I actually am not going to check out because I think there's an easier way. You remember our old friend reset, which is ripping up a sticky note and moving it somewhere? There are purists who will say, oh, you can check out upstream main using git, check out something or other. And I don't even remember the command because it's not how I do it. What I'm going to do, you can see what's the current branch that I'm on. I'm on places to play. That's not going to help me. I'll use a Git Status to confirm it. I'm on places to play. Doesn't help me. I need to either check out main, or I can use the modern command, switch. Your branch is up to date with Origin's version of main. Yeah, it is. It's up to date with Origin's main. Origin is my fork. I know this, a little mind-bending. So how am I going to make my local main match upstreams? Well, if you ask me, it's far easier for me to rip this sticky note off of this commit and paste it on this one. I just think that's easier. Instead of doing all kinds of fancy commit logic, why don't I just take the sticky note from my local main, the one with the little laptop picture, and paste it on the exact same commit that upstream main is pointing to? Then I'll be in sync. And the command to do that is git reset.
Wait. It's git move sticky.
Yeah, you're right. It is. That's the command.
Sticky?
Git remove sticky is git reset. And there's different, we had a show where we talked about hard and mixed and soft. But hard means, listen, I want you to rip that sticky note off of where it is. I want you to put it at the place I'm telling you to. And I want you to reset all the files to match. Which is true. I do want that. I want whatever changes upstream has. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say upstream main And Git says, head, isn't that nice and confusing? Head is now at 95814F3, a commit with the message merge pull request number 3 from space shot places to play. That message should look familiar. So I pulled the sticky note off of local main, pasted it on upstream main. That's what that command did. And the result looks like this. See how magic. I'm going to zoom in there. The dev talk shows main upstream matches local main, the little picture of my laptop, both pointing at merge pull request number 3 from space shot places to play. The only one that's behind now is origin. That's the only one that's behind.
So when you say origin, what you're saying is main with the face, with the Chris Gomez face. And what that's saying is not local main, but the main up on the server in GitHub in Chris Gomez in Space Shot doesn't have that change.
Right. In fact, let's look. So Git hockey site, it even knows. It says, man, this branch is 2 commits behind the dev talk show main. And now GitHub has this button that does what I'm about to do, but it didn't used to have this button. So if anything, am I telling you to use this button? Yes, use this button. But in the old days, in my day, which really wasn't that long ago, you had to basically do what I'm doing, which is to say, okay, let me bring my local up to date exactly in line with Upstream being the Dev Talk Show's version. And now the question is, well, how am I going to get origin updated? Oh, I know. I'll push. Since I'm up here, as soon as I push my local branch to the branch that it's tracking, origin main, it's going to say, oh yeah, those 2 commits, no problem. Let's see what happens when I say Git Status.
That's because your local has 2 remotes.
It's what makes it possible is that by bringing in the upstream remote, I was able to reset to a branch on it. Yeah. Then, because by default, my main branch is tracking origin main. Remember that whole tracking term that's confusing? My branch main is tracking origins main. So Git even knows. It says you're on branch main. Your branch is ahead of origins main by 2 commits. And by the way, you can push to publish. So Git's figured it out. Git is like, yeah, you got ahead by 2 commits somehow. I'm not 100% sure how you did, and I don't actually care. But if you push, then your commits will be published. No problem.
Yeah.
I could even do something like this, I think. I think you can say fast forward only. I think that's a command I can do. I don't have to do this, by the way. But if I just say git push.
And I'm not saying git push origin, but that's essentially what you're doing, right?
Yes, because of the convention that when I cloned, origin was not only set as the remote that I cloned from. Yes. It also checks out main. Doesn't tell you that. It checks out main. And it sets up main to track origin main. It does all of that without you knowing.
Right.
So if I remove my view to upstream, I'm not looking at it anymore. This doesn't look that different from a situation we see every day at work. I added a couple commits. I need to update origin. We see this all the time. I added a couple commits. I need to update origin. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to say git push. And what we're going to see now is in perfect harmony, all of these commits, all of these sticky notes, the local main, the upstream main, the origin main, they are all pointing to the current merge pull request number 3. I can head back to GitHub and we will see it as soon as I hit refresh. This branch is up to date with the Dev Talk Show Git Hockey site main. It's even telling me it's up to date.
And that's because it knows that it still knows that this was forked from there.
Right.
Because it's forked from, yeah.
Right. And so fetching the upstream is the Git terminology for bringing your local repository up to date with whatever's happening where you started. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend I know where the word upstream came from. We could probably reason it out. But this button did not used to be here. This fetch upstream button. This branch is not behind the upstream, the dev, so nothing to do. But now you can click fetch upstream, and if you're a little nervous about what's changed, you can compare, you can fetch and merge. You can do that now. You didn't used to be able to do that. So what did I have to do before I could do that? The step-by-step process I just showed you of let me add the remote, let me reset to its main, and now let me push to my origin, which is a repository I own.
Great. And then I guess you can delete the branch right now. Get places to play, right?
Sure. I have no need for places to play, but let's go one better. Is places to play, watch this. Places to play does not exist any longer on Space Shot's Git Hockey site, right? Doesn't exist.
Well, not any longer. It never did, right? Because you pushed it straight to...
It did exist here for a short time because I pushed places to play here and then I opened the pull request.
Oh, you did. Yeah, you never merged it.
Right? When the pull request was merged, I deleted that branch.
Oh, you deleted it from your local, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, not my local.
No, I mean not your local.
Oh,
yeah,
I know, because
yeah.
There's two repositories in play here. My version on GitHub, my version local, and then the third one, the Dev Talk Shows version. I get it. Right. It's a little mind-bending. I can say this, Git Remote Prune origin, and this command says, go look at origin and get rid of any branches they got rid of at origin that I'm still think exist, because look at...
Oh, that's like a quick cleanup.
See this origin places to play? It's still here. I can't make it go away. But if I do that, it says, oh, origin doesn't have a places to play anymore. So now let's go back and it's gone. From here. What makes this really difficult to understand is that Git is tracking these repositories, but it's keeping local versions of the commits. So I just told it, you no longer need that sticky note that points to those, but I still have my places to play, the local version. I still have it. So I can do one final thing, which I think is git checkout -d. I think it is, and if it's not, maybe it's this. No, maybe it's not. It might not be checkout. It might be. Is it git? You know what it might be? Git branch
remove
-d places to play. There we go. Little bit of a... So what Git is telling me here is I took the sticky note that I have for you locally called places to play that was pointing at 509 DEAA. I took that off and I threw it in the trash. Does that mean the commit is gone? No. The commit is fine. The reason the commit is fine is because it's still being pointed backwards from a commit that still has sticky notes pointing to it. The only thing I did wrong here is since I'm in detached head state now, meaning that I'm pointing to a commit that has no branch or tag. That's all. Detached head is the scariest thing. It's like an episode of The Walking Dead, right? Git's telling me head is pointing to some raw commit. So it's detached head state. So if I say git checkout main, it's like
main, right?
Fine. It's like fine. You're good. You're good. Now you're back on main. You're good. You're fine. Yeah. And everything is right with the world. And that was an almost 2-hour, 90-minute version of what happens to your pull request and how you can get back to work. And I'm not saying that most people don't just. And I'm so glad to see that GitHub now has this. I think this helps a lot of people. Fetch upstream. I think this helps a lot of people. But
yeah, I mean, listen, all this stuff is helpful. I feel like if we wanted to do this show again tomorrow, we could do this not exact show. We could show people how to do open source forking and things like that. And we could do the whole thing in 15 minutes, right? But we don't do that. You want to go read a quick blog post, that's out there. What we do is we're stopping and we're saying, well, wait. Let's really talk about what's going on here. And that's why I love the shows, the way you spell this out for people, because most people, oh, I'll just Google it and you get 4 commands, you just type them in a row and you're done.
Oh, or you're in
Well,
worse shape than you ever were, right?
yeah. I mean, it's really good to understand this stuff, and you understand it so well. That's awesome.
So,
Thank you, Chris. Yeah.
so I mean,
Hector says this is great.
cool.
Thanks, Hector.
I'm
Appreciate
glad.
that.
I'm glad. And again, I know that my approach to Git is very methodical, very step by step. But I'll tell you, the reason, easy for me to say, the reason I work that way is because I was banging my head against the wall to understand, like, why is I'm so lost and confused, and I'm just going to throw this away, and I'm going to try to save my work off somewhere, and then I'm going to try to put it back, and oh, I did it, and I still have these conflicts, and I don't know what to do, and I give up. If you've ever had the teammate that tells you, man, I don't know what's wrong, I'm just going to have to throw all my code away and save off what I can, and I'm going to try to copy it back into place. And I feel for them when that happens, because that's error prone. What if you don't get all the copies right? What if in your process of copying your work, you don't realize that, hey, someone else touched that file too. And instead of merging the changes, you've now blown away their work because you said, well, let me copy my files out and then I'll put them back in place over top of latest. Oh, but wait a second, someone else modified that file too. They made a one-line change way in a different spot. There wouldn't have been a conflict there. But you took your work, copied it, splatted it over top. It's gone. And people say to themselves, like, man, Git is weird. I don't know what happened, but that bug came back. Darn Git. Git is a real mess. So, anyways.
It's tricky. It's really tricky. It's so powerful, though.
Yeah. It is. And
it's so powerful, and it's such a part of our job, though.
That's so true.
And it's amazing how many of us, I'm being really clear in saying us, and I mean it that way. I mean me, right? How many of us don't really understand this tool that we use all the time, and we're just like, oh yeah, I'll just click that button there. It's going to be good, right? And I don't understand it as much. I'm trying. I think if I used it more, I think I would. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe a lot of people really do get it. But my understanding is that many people don't.
Yeah. So hey, next week.
Anyway,
building a Visual Studio Code extension next week. So we'll be right back here again, 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern. Tell your friends, tell the people you work with. Check the meetup site. We're going to try to keep on pushing that schedule out so you know what's coming. You can join us live on Twitch. You can join us on YouTube. I hear a lot of people treat it like a podcast, and they listen. They listen, which is cool. I'm trying to remember to be more descriptive when we're doing code, because, boy, it'd be one thing if you were like washing the dishes and trying to follow along what we're doing on line 7, right? But hey, we love that you're watching. We love that you're listening. We love that you're commenting with us in chat here on Twitch or down below on YouTube. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/thedevtalkshow. And if you are watching on YouTube right now and you want to join us live, it's twitch.tv. Or we're here on YouTube too, right on this channel when we go live. But it's also twitch.tv/thedevtalkshow. So, Andy, thank you for slowing me down, for asking the questions that I was even glossing over. I really appreciate it. Really good.
Happy to help. Thanks for bringing the knowledge on this. This is your topic, man. You're passionate about it, and you share a lot of knowledge with the audience. And we're lucky we got you for this stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. I just, I want to see everybody struggle less. I wish I could put these talks out of business. And I've tried. I try, and I'll try again. Maybe the next time I try will be at Tech Bash. We'll see. But we'll talk about that another time. So it's probably time to get going, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey,
Good
thanks again. Thanks everybody for joining us. Great to see you in chat. We saw Loca, we saw Hector, and everybody else. DC Wang. Thank you so much for participating. And even if you didn't, just that you were here really means a lot to us. You know, we appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week right here on the Dev Talk Show.